Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? The books are over there. You can't see them. Rearranged in actually a different room than I used to be. Anyhow, this video is kind of about imagination, sort of. Well, let's talk about it. So there was an experience I had during the last Call of Cthulhu session that I forgot to talk about in my last video about Call of Cthulhu, but I wanted to talk about it now because it was one of those things that once again, it happens. I think about it and I'm like, wow, that's really kind of interesting. I wonder why it felt that way or why did that happen? Why did I feel this particular way? What the heck am I talking about? So there's this moment during the investigation where we discover this diary or journal, and it was made very evident really fast that this thing is in a cipher. So we can't just open the book and start reading it and find out what, whoever wrote it, was thinking or saying or doing or all that kind of stuff. So the scene, if you will, kind of goes on, and, well, I'm not going to tell you what I was doing or thinking. So at some point, Anthony, the keeper of arcane lore, asks, are either of you, have you been looking inside this book? Have you been, doing anything with it? And at that point, I said, well, yeah, I was, actually kind of imagining, just sort of holding the book and flipping through the pages. Now, this is not something that I said as we were playing, but it's something that I was imagining as I was putting myself in the place of the character. Now, it was something that I kind of say even reluctantly. If you watch the video when that particular episode, if you will, airs on Anthony's channel, I think I hesitate for a second, and the reason I hesitate is because if I was in a different group of players in a different situation, I'd be hesitant to say something like that, or much more hesitant, or wouldn't say it at all, because people might decide that I had made it up on the spot, that I had been retconning, that I had been saying, oh, well, this sounds advantageous, or, oh, this sounds like this might be fun because something awful might happen, or whatever it happens to be. And I would say, oh, yes, of course I'm leafing through this book. What happens, right? But that wasn't the case. And it, got me thinking, first it got me thinking about why did I hesitate for a second? And, why did I have that reaction? And of course, this is among friends. I don't think any of us are really going to believe that the other one is lying or doing something like that. They're not cheating. It's not even cheating. I don't know what the heck you call it, but just, being deceitful. Or deciding that on the spot. But it brings home a point for me that, I'll talk about later in another video, because the topic of imagination and immersion, and which are not the same, has kind of come up again. And that's the idea that, what we imagine at the table, as individuals, if you were able to look inside each person's head and let, even though the description might be very, very detailed or not, in a group of players, very often you'll find a detailed imagination inside each person's head, but they're not the same. The key points might be the same, but the way things look, feel, all that kind of stuff might be very, very different. And, very often, we are not, it wasn't one of those cases where, well, something isn't real unless you speak it out loud, which is one of those, things that pops up in gaming every once in a while. But I, was sitting there in Terrence's head, holding this journal, listening to Alfred Smalls talk about something or whatever he was doing, just kind of sort of flipping through the book, sort of almost absent-mindedly. What the heck is this anyway? What can I make of this? And so that's what I was imagining was going on. But I didn't speak it out loud. I could have. But it was one of those things, like several things that I imagined in the course of a role-playing session where I see things, maybe I'm doing little inconsequential things, or perhaps they're mannerisms or whatever, and I don't always speak them out loud, sometimes just because it's going to interrupt the flow of whatever's going on, or, it's, especially in an online playing situation, it's a little bit tougher, it's, because of the stutter of things, even like of a Zoom and what have you. If you played on Zoom, you know what I mean, or had a meeting on Zoom. You can talk over each other, and there's that lag. So there's times I'm reluctant to say things like that, but I'm still imagining them. And it's interesting. I watched a video of Anthony talking to the guy from the Primeval Fantasy, and they talk about things like imagination, and the idea gets brought up that everybody at the table may be imagining something different. They don't always correspond. And, that's been the truth for me. And so it was just kind of interesting to see that little thing that I had been imagining all of a sudden asked about. And I say, well, that's actually, as a matter of fact, I was. And it's just fascinating the perspectives of the various people at the table, what's going on inside of all of our heads, how much of it actually matches, how much of it doesn't. Does it matter? What are the parts that matter? What are the parts that don't matter? And that was the part that became interesting and mattered, but it wasn't something that was particularly vital either. What do you think about that? Have a good one, kids.